Tibetan Book of the Dead. Right directing of thought when dying. Buddhists and Hindus alike believe that the last thought at the moment of death determines the character of the next incarnation. As the Bardo Thödol teaches, echoing the ancient wisdom of the Indian sages, the thought process of a dying person should be rightly directed. Ideally, this guidance should come from the dying person themselves if they have been initiated or trained to meet death with awareness. Otherwise, it may be offered by a guru, friend, or relative versed in the science of dying. Sri Krishna, in the Bhagavad Gita, Verse 6, declares to Arjuna, "One attaineth whatever state of being one thinketh about at the last when relinquishing the body, being ever absorbed in the thought thereof." In this teaching lies a profound truth. Our past thoughts have shaped our present condition, and our present thoughts will shape our future destiny. For man is indeed what man thinks. The Dhammapada begins with the same principle. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. It is founded on our thoughts. It is made up of our thoughts. Similarly, the Hebrew sages affirmed in Proverbs 23:7, "As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he." Preface to the first edition. In this book, I have sought, as far as possible, to suppress my own opinions and act simply as the mouthpiece of a Tibetan sage, of whom I was a recognized disciple. He was willing that I should make known his interpretation of the higher Lamaic teachings and the subtle esotericism underlying the Bardo Thödol, following the private oral instructions he had received as a young ascetic from his late hermit guru in Bhutan. Being himself a man of considerable Western learning, he took great pains to help me present Oriental ideas in a form comprehensible to the European mind. Where amplification was needed, I have drawn on Occidental parallels to the mystical and occult doctrines of the Orient, not out of preference, but because during my wanderings, chiefly in the high Himalayas and on the Tibetan frontiers of Kashmir, Garhwal, and Sikkim, I encountered philosophers and holy men who themselves recognized striking analogies between Eastern and Western beliefs. Whether these similarities arose from influence passing from East to West or West to East remained uncertain. Yet the kinship between the two traditions was undeniable. For over 5 years I pursued this research, from the palm-fringed shores of Ceylon, across the vast landscapes of India, to the glacier-clad Himalayan heights. I sought out wise men in cities, yogis in jungles and mountain solitudes, monks in monasteries, and pilgrims along sacred routes. The introduction, which, in its unusual length, is intended as a necessary commentary to the translation, together with the annotations to the text, records the more important results of this quest, particularly concerning Northern or Mahayana Buddhism. Yet I must emphasize that my role has been little more than that of compiler and editor of the Tibetan Book of the Dead. The greatest credit belongs to the deceased translator who possessed a rare knowledge of both the occult sciences of Tibet and the scientific outlook of the West. To him, therefore, this work is chiefly owed. Alongside this central debt to my preceptor, I must acknowledge the generous help of many friends across the world, whether in Japan, China, Ceylon, India, Tibet, or my native America. Here in England, I owe much to Dr. R. Marrett of Oxford, who has guided my anthropological research since 1907, to Sir John Woodroffe, foremost Western authority on the Tantras, for his invaluable advice and his foreword, and to Sri Atal Bihari Ghosh, Sir E. Denison Ross, Dr. F. W. Thomas, Major W. L. Campbell, Sir Charles Bell, and many others for their scholarly criticism, encouragement, and assistance. Special thanks are due also to Sardar Bahadur S. W. Larden La, who introduced me to the late Lama Kazi Dawa Samdup, translator of the Bardo Thödol, to Dr. Johann van Maanen of Calcutta, who provided Tibetan texts and counsel, and to Dr. Cassius A. Pereira of Colombo, who reviewed parts of the introduction in light of Theravada Buddhism. To these and to many more friends, I remain deeply indebted. Thus, under the best of auspices, this book is now offered to the world, in the hope that it may add to the sum of right knowledge and serve as one more spiritual strand binding East and West together in mutual respect understanding, and love, a bond of goodwill that transcends every barrier of creed, caste, and race. First, renunciation. Turn away from the lust of life, from the snare of conceit, from the blindness of ignorance, and from the frenzy of distraction. Break the bonds, only thus shalt thou reach the utter end of Illinois. Cast off the chain of birth and death, for thou knowest their weight. And free from craving, still dwelling on this earth, thou shalt walk thy way calm and serene. The Buddha, Psalms of the Early Buddhists. Second victory. Yet anguish crept upon me, even upon me, as I sat pondering alone in my small cell. Alas, how have I wandered onto this evil road? How strayed beneath the power of craving? Brief is the span of life still left to me, with old age and disease looming close to crush. Before this body perishes and dissolves, I must act swiftly. There is no time for sloth. So contemplating the aggregates of life, as they truly are, rising and passing away, I stood at last, with mind emancipate. For me, the Blessed One's words had come to pass. Mittakal, a Brahmin bhikkhun, Psalms of the Early Buddhists. Introduction. The phenomena of life may be likened unto a dream, a phantasm, a bubble, a shadow, the glistening dew, or a lightning flash, and thus they ought to be contemplated. The Buddha, the Immutable Sutra. I. The importance of the Bardo Thödol. As a contribution to the science of death, existence after death, and rebirth, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, known in its own language as the Bardo Thödol, liberation by hearing in the after-death state, is unique among the sacred books of the world. It stands as an epitome of the cardinal doctrines of the Mahayana school of Buddhism, important not only religiously, but also philosophically and historically. As a treatise based upon the occult sciences of yoga philosophy, once central to the great Buddhist University of Nalanda, the Oxford of ancient India, it is one of the most remarkable works ever brought from the East to the West. As a mystical manual for guidance through the other world of many illusions and realms, whose boundaries are death and rebirth, it bears a striking resemblance to the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Whether this resemblance points to some ancient cultural connection remains unknown. What we do know is that its teachings have been preserved through the centuries by saints and sages of Tibet, the land of snow and silence. The second, the symbolism. The Bardo Thödol is unique in that it treats of the entire cycle of phenomenal existence intervening between death and birth. It rests upon the ancient doctrine of karma, cause and effect, and of rebirth, regarded as the most essential laws of nature governing human life. Much of its teaching, however, appears at first sight obscure, for it is expressed in an occult and symbolic language. Since early times, many initiates of India, Tibet, China, Mongolia, and Japan have used a secret symbol code to convey esoteric doctrines. In the West, too, symbolism was employed by the Egyptians, the Druids, the Greek philosophers, and even in the parables of Jesus. Across all traditions, the simple languages of daily life have often been inadequate to express transcendental truths. Christian ritual itself bears traces of this universal symbolism. The lamb, the serpent, the dove, the triangle with the all-seeing eye, the sacred fish, the burning fire, the risen sun, and the cross. These are but remnants of an older symbolic heritage whose esoteric meaning has long been forgotten. So too has much of the symbolism in Northern Buddhism been criticized by other schools as esoteric invention, even though the Pali scriptures themselves contain parables and metaphors that point to deeper meanings. Thus, while the Southern school insists on literal interpretation, the Tibetan Lamas claim, with some justification, that there exists an oral tradition, a body of unrecorded teachings handed down from master to disciple, which complements and deepens the written canon. Esoteric Buddhism, in this view, does not contradict exoteric Buddhism, but relates to it as higher mathematics relates to lower mathematics, a more subtle extension of the same truths. the 49 days of the Bardo. The text is structured around the sacred number 49, the square of 7. According to occult teaching, there are 7 worlds within the cycle of existence, each with 7 stages of evolution. Thus, 49 stations of being are traversed in the great journey of consciousness. Just as the human embryo passes through many stages before birth, so too the soul passes through many stages in the after-death state before rebirth. The 49 days of the Bardo therefore symbolize both cosmic law and the inner process of consciousness. In Hindu mythology, the 7 vows, the 7 fires and their 49 aspects, and the serpent of eternity all reflect this same truth. In Christian tradition, the holiness of the 7th day and the sevenfold imagery of revelation carry similar echoes. In nature, too, the law of 7 governs periodicity, sound, and color. Upon this universal rhythm, the Bardo Thödol is built. The 4 elements. The esoteric teachings of the Bardo also unfold through the symbolism of the 5 elements. In the first cosmic cycle, only fire existed, containing within it all other elements in potential. In the second, air emerged. In the third, water. And in the fourth, the present age, earth arose, crusting the fiery globe. The fifth, ether, remains yet to dawn in fullness, symbolizing the higher consciousness of a humanity yet to be. Each element manifests not only in the outer world, but also in man. Fire gives vitality, air the breath, water the life stream, earth the body, and ether the mind. The yogi who masters these elements masters himself and becomes a universal ruler of nature. V. The wisdom teachings. At the heart of the Bardo Thödol are the wisdom teachings of Mahayana Buddhism. The supreme goal is realization of the void, shunyata, the primordial state of uncreated being, beyond all illusions. This state is embodied in the Dharmakaya, the body of truth, the formless ocean of reality itself. From this arise the Sambhogakaya, the body of bliss, and the Nirmanakaya, the body of transformation. These are not gods in the personal sense, but personifications of universal forces and truths sustaining all beings and guiding them toward liberation. The 5 Dhyani Buddhas, Vairochana, Akshobhya, Ratnasambhava, Amitabha, and Amoghasiddhi, embody 5 divine wisdoms: the wisdom of the void, the mirror-like wisdom, the wisdom of equality, the discriminating wisdom, and the all-accomplishing wisdom. In the Bardo, the deceased is introduced to each in turn, as if undergoing a great initiation. To recognize and embrace them is to attain Buddhahood. To fail is to descend again into rebirth. Thus, the Bardo Thödol presents death not as an end, but as a passage, a trial, and an opportunity. Through its symbolic drama, the soul is guided toward liberation, if it can awaken to its true nature. The funeral effigy and its symbolism. In Tibetan custom, the effigy of the deceased is given a paper face called the Spyangpu. The central figure represents the dead, seated with legs bound and hands in adoration. Around it are symbols of the 5 excellent sensuous things: a mirror for sight and the body, a conch and lyre for sound, a vase of flowers for smell, holy cakes for taste, and silken clothes with a canopy for touch. It is before this paper face, set into the effigy as head and visage, that food offerings continue to be made, and before which the Bardo Thödol is read aloud, the Lama visualizing the effigy as the deceased in person. My own Tibetan research began after years spent studying the funeral law of Egypt, and the parallels were immediately striking. The effigy used in Tibet closely resembles the Egyptian statue of the Osiris, set before which priests read from their Book of the Dead. Both serve the same purpose: to act as guides for the soul through the after-death realms. In Egypt, rituals open the mouth and eyes of the corpse to restore its senses in the ka, or spirit body. In Tibet, the Lama likewise seeks to restore consciousness to the deceased, who has fainted into the swoon that follows death, and to accustom him to the strange terrain of the otherworld. Both traditions aim to awaken the dead into awareness so that they may not wander helplessly. The Spyangpu itself bears inscriptions. The deceased declares devotion to his Lama and to all deities, peaceful and wrathful alike, asking forgiveness for past sins and guidance toward a good rebirth. Symbols inscribed on the figure point to the 6 realms of existence: the world of the gods, of titans, of humans, of animals, of hungry ghosts, and of hell. At the close of the rites, the face paper is burned in a butter lamp, and by the character of the flame, the fate of the deceased is divined. The ashes are pressed into small clay stupors, some kept on the family altar, others placed at crossroads or sheltered places in the mountains. The remainder of the effigy is dismantled. The clothing is taken by the lamas, who sell it and keep the proceeds as part of their fee. After a year, a feast is held in honor of the dead, the service of the medicine Buddhas is performed, and a widow may remarry. The funeral procession. At the removal of the body, the Lama presents a scarf of honor to the corpse and addresses it directly, reminding it that it is dead, urging it not to linger as a ghost, and guiding it toward the white path of liberation. The scarf is tied to the corpse, and the Lama, taking the other end, leads the procession, chanting to the beat of a hand drum and the eerie call of a trumpet made from a human thigh bone. Other priests may join with conch shells, cymbals, and bells. The Lama looks back from time to time, beckoning the spirit to follow. Behind the corpse-bearers march the mourners, with offerings of food, some to be shared with the dead, some for the priests, some for the living. Such guiding of the spirit is for lay people. The spirit of a trained Lama needs no such escort, for it has already been taught to navigate the Bardo. In Tibet, all methods of disposing of the dead are practiced. Cremation is rare because wood is scarce. More often, the body is taken to a hilltop, cut into pieces, and given to vultures and beasts. This air burial, though stark, is considered merciful, preventing the corpse from being re-entered by the spirit and turning into a vampire. Where disease is feared, earth burial may be used. The bodies of great lamas are embalmed in salt and resins, coated with gold, and set upright in magnificent shrines like those at Shigatse, glowing with roofs of gold. These methods echo the Hindu teaching that the human body, made of earth, water, air, and fire, should be swiftly returned to those elements. The mysticism of cremation. In Sikkim, the cremation ground is prepared with a sacred diagram of Amitabha's Pure Land. The pyre itself is visualized as his mandala. When the fire is lit, it is seen as Amitabha himself, consuming all karmic obscurations. Spices, woods, and fragrant oils are thrown into the flames as offerings. In this way, the cremation is not merely destruction of a body, but a sacred rite of purification, releasing the soul in light. The Bardo states, from the moment of death until about the 4th day, the soul lies in a trance, unaware that it has been separated from the body. This is the first Bardo, the state of the moment of death, when the clear light dawns. Few can recognize it. Failing to hold it, the soul drifts into obscuration. Next comes the second Bardo, the state of reality, when visions arise, hallucinations born of one's own karmic thoughts and deeds. These appear as peaceful and wrathful deities, dazzling or terrifying. They are not real beings, but projections of the mind. Recognized as such, they lead to liberation. Misunderstood, they bind the soul more deeply. Finally, the soul enters the third Bardo, the state of rebirth, driven by the craving for a new body. Here it is drawn toward a womb, human or otherwise, according to karma. For most people, this is the path, through illusions, through visions, to another birth. But the great yogi, trained in meditation, may pass directly into liberation, or else choose to reincarnate with full awareness to aid mankind. The psychology of the visions. The deities of the Bardo are not external gods, but personified impulses. The peaceful deities are the feelings of the heart. The wrathful deities are the reasonings of the mind. Both arise from within, from the contents of one's own consciousness. To realize this is to be free. The Bardo Thödol repeats again and again, These are but the reflections of thine own thought forms. If the soul can recognize this truth, it awakens into reality and is liberated. If not, it is swept onward by its own illusions into rebirth. The Judgment. The judgment scene of the Bardo resembles that of ancient Egypt. In Tibet, the Lord of Death, Dharma Raja, weighs white pebbles of good deeds against black pebbles of evil. In Egypt, Osiris weighed the heart against the feather of truth. Both scenes portray the same eternal idea that one's own deeds determine one's fate. The doctrine of rebirth. On rebirth, two interpretations are given. The exoteric holds that humans may return as animals or in subhuman form, taking the scriptures literally. The esoteric insists that the human principle cannot pass instantly into a lower form. Rather, it evolves or devolves only gradually over vast cycles. The seeds of character remain human until through ages of degeneration they fade. Esoteric teaching maintains that animal rebirths described in Scripture are symbolic, representing traits and tendencies. Thus, the dog symbolizes sensuality, the pig ignorance, the ant miserliness, the lion courage. Just as we speak of fox-like cunning or lion-hearted bravery, so these images stand for qualities of the human mind. In this view, rebirth continues in human form, with traits shaped by karma. Only through enlightenment can the cycle be broken. Otherwise, man remains bound to the wheel, reaping what he has sown, birth after birth. Conclusion. The Bardo Thödol presents the after-death state as a dream woven from one's own mind. To the unenlightened, it is a realm of visions and terrors, leading to another birth. To the yogi who recognizes the dream as dream, it becomes the doorway to awakening. The teaching is clear: what we think, we become, here and hereafter. Liberation lies not in fleeing visions, but in recognizing them as the mind's own creations and awakening beyond them into the clear, boundless light.